Welcome, everybody, to the Xavier Basketball Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I am your host for Xavier Basketball Weekly, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in, as always, my co-host, Andy MacWilliams. How you doing, Andy Mac?
Mike, things are looking up. I think the Muskies' NCAA profile is better than most would think. If they could win maybe 4 of the final 6, I think they're a lock for an NCAA at large bid. And the goal is to go 9-9 in the Big East, and 9 wins in this league is really a good number.
Yeah, and with games at home against Villanova and Butler, I think if they get those 4 wins, and those are 2 of the 4 wins, that makes it a lot easier to get in also.
Yeah, that's sort of the way I see it. They have 3 home games left. It looks like the Paul is leaking oil. They were really blown out the other day. I think they played at Creighton, but which, that does happen in Omaha, but they got killed by 30. It didn't look like they were very interested. I mean, they have an NIT shot, I guess, but they're out of the NCAA picture. And Xavier has the Paul next week after the Villanova game. So ideally, just when you plan on something in this league, it blows up. So, they do have talent. But I think Xavier will beat DePaul. If they don't, they got real problems. But a lot of people I think took the Butler loss last Wednesday at Hinkle as a bit more serious for Xavier's prospects. But hey, it's a good loss. It was a quad 1 NET loss, and that's the way it is. That's life in the Big East. You're either quad 1 or quad 2, and if you get the quad 1 road wins and you win by double digits, the NET loves that. That victory that Xavier had at Seton Hall is still paying dividends. That was like, over 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, the NET is a weird algorithm. There's some secret sauce in there. But, last year I cursed it because it really didn't, Xavier had a strong finish. And, they let St.Johns into the damn NCAA last year, and they were like brutal down the stretch. Xavier beat them twice in the last week of the season, and the Huskies had a lot more mojo, and Xavier hardly even got in the bubble last year. And this year, I dial up. They haven't played. Xavier hasn't played since the Butler game, right?
Yeah.
And they've gone up like 6 spots in the NET. I mean, they must be practicing really well. I don't know if the NET figures that in. No, they don't. But they've gone from like 45 without playing a game. They're up to 39 in the NET, and a 39 NET is almost an assured NCAA bid. I mean, there could be a monkey wrench there, but coming from the Big East, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and when we looked at the Butler game, a 66-61 loss, Tyreek Jones, Najee Marshall played really well. The problem was the bench only scored 6 points. I think we got outscored 23-6 on the bench with only Tandy with 3 points, Moore with 3 points. Quentin Gooden was a non-factor in 26 minutes. Only 9 turnovers. It's not that they played poorly. It's just you got to have more than just 2 guys putting the ball in the bucket.
Yeah, I thought that Butler game was there for the taking. Xavier, in my opinion, I thought the effort was maybe B plus. This is a hardworking group, but the execution was a gentleman's C over there at Hinkle Fieldhouse. And like you say, Kiki Tandy and Q and Bryce Moore really didn't contribute much off the bench. And Butler, Harold Padley, he knocked down, I think, 3 threes. He'd had 4 all season. And that Tucker kid who really has a thing against playing defense and rebounding. He's a hell of a shooter, though. And McDermott, they shot it well. So, they did their thing from 3, and that was a big gap for Xavier. And Najee Marshall ended up with 20 points, but he was a passenger in the first half. And it looked like he was concentrating so much on defending Kamar Baldwin that he forgot to – he let the game come to him too much. Second half, Najee was knocked down great, and Tyreek put up another monster double-double. But outside of those 2 guys, and Carter and the rest of them, and Fremantle played pretty well, but Carter didn't get on the scoreboard much. I mean, that game was there for the taking. It was just boom. And I don't want to rip the officiating, but every time Xavier Big touched the ball down on the block, one of their three big guys tackled him. And they took Scruggs right out of the game with 2 touch fouls in the first couple minutes. And with his family and his posse and all his buddies from Southeastern High School there, I think he would have had a big game. He knocked down his first 3 like it was no big deal, and then the officials basically took him out of the ball game. I hate those hand check fouls early, and I don't know what they're trying to prove. And how the heck are you supposed to control? How are you supposed to control Kamar Baldwin if you don't put a hand on him?
Yeah, and how many times did they have a guy with 4 fouls in the second half? It seemed like he got his 5th constantly, and they never did call it.
I think all 4 of their bigs, Golden and Enzi, who are both playing way above their pay grade. Those guys, they really know how to position themselves, use their bodies. They know their limitations. And then the big, Derek Smits, they all had 4 fouls for eons. I mean,
Smith's got it in 8 minutes. Smith picked up 4 personal fouls in 8 minutes. I'll tell you, though, I think that kid's going to be a good player.
Who?
Smith.
Oh, Smith. Yeah, too bad he's a 5th-year senior. He's gone.
It was kind of a joke, but all right.
I get it.
Yeah, anytime somebody picks up 4 fouls in 8 minutes, that's kind of like my son. He's a football player, but he played 8th grade basketball, and he played in a state tournament game because they have that in Indiana. And first round of the state tournament, he fouled out in the first 2 minutes of the game.
Well, at least he got his pound of flesh.
Oh, he got a few pounds of flesh. And I kept telling the coach, I said, you need to just take him out of the game. He said, no, I told him you can't do it again. Next thing you know, my son's tackling. I mean, he had more tackles in this season than anybody's ever had on a basketball team. All right, let's look at St. Johns. And I think this is a big game because, as you said, to get to the 4 wins, I would think this has to be one of them, probably. I mean, you figure you get to Paul. You'd like to get those 2, net 1 wins against Villanova and who am I forgetting? Butler. But when you look at St. Johns, they're a team that is even more desperate than what Xavier is right now. They had a big win against Providence last week. What's your take on St. Johns here? The Muskies beat them 75-67 a little over a month ago.
In my idle mind, I think Mike Anderson, in his first year at St. John's, should be Big East Coach of the Year. His team is 14-11, 3-9 in the league, which I will doom him not to get the award. But he has done more with less than anybody in this league. And now he's got Mustafa Heron, the Auburn transfer, pretty good offensive player, basically a passenger on defense. He's out for the year with an ankle injury. The only other guy that Mullin left him that Mullin ever used was L.J. Figueroa, and he is an elite shooter. But the other aspects of his game sort of come and go. So Anderson, who's never had a losing season in 19 years of D1 basketball, he's going to do it again. They're going to be a factor in the NIT. I don't think they have to run the table here in the Big East, which they're not going to do with their schedule, whether they beat Xavier or not. But can you imagine the beauty of St. John's getting a good seed in the NIT, getting some home games, either up at Carnesecca or down at MSG in the preliminary rounds, and then the semis and the finals of the NIT are at Madison Square Garden. You want to talk about filling a place up and making money for everybody. I think that St. John's, if they end up in the NIT, and I think there's a strong chance they will, no matter what their ultimate record is here, they're taking sub-500 teams in the NIT now. And those guys, the NCAA owns the NIT. Now they want to make money. They'll take a New York area team. St. John's will win the damn NIT. That guy plays 40 minutes of hell. He presses. He turned Providence over 24 times. He had Ed Cooley, with his head in his hands at the end of the bench, not talking to anybody in the second half. It got so bad. The PC coach, man, he was beyond himself. He was he was totally pissed at his coaches, his team, his life. I mean, St. Johns will turn you over. They'll steal the ball. They're pretty inartistic shooting it. But if they get enough scrambled offense and, pass break layups, odd man rushes, as we'd say in the hockey world, and open threes, I mean, they can, they'll score 85 on you in a heartbeat. And if they do that at MSG and make it a track meet, Xavier's got a problem. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Xavier's mature enough to control the tempo and win this game in the 60s. And, they've beaten St. John's 10 times in a row dating back to 2015. And they've sort of owned the Johnnies. But Anderson's the best coach they've had in ages. Certainly better than Lavin, better than Mullin. And if he could get some recruits, and he's going to the well locally in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, they could rebuild that.
Yeah, I think they'll rebuild it quickly, too. I mean, they didn't belong in the tournament last year, and when I covered the first four, I've never been less impressed with a head coach than I was with Chris Mullin.
I mean, at the start of Mullin's tenure, I thought that he might have the right formula. He brought in two junkyard dog recruiters, and they didn't get along, so one of them had to go. Then he brought in Mitch Richmond. And it was all like NBA, it's a player's game. You're going to play unstructured offense. We're going to use defense as an excuse to get the ball back. We're just going to outscore people. He had some talent, and they loved to play for him because I imagine his practices were 45 minutes of, layup lines and three-point shots. And they had some talent. They were good, but he burned them out last year. I mean, he played that Iron 5, and they were done in the middle of February. They were just toasted. And how they ever got an NIT bid or an NCAA bid over Xavier, over anybody is beyond me. That was, you knew, it's one of those teams, you knew they could go to the first four, the Pocatello, Idaho. They were going to lose to whoever they matched up with. They were ready for the season to be over.
Yeah, and they did. I think it was Arizona State that beat them. Can't remember for sure.
Yeah, there's another team that, sort of discombobulated under Bobby Hurley in the second half last year. Yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to get it done there. Yeah.
I don't think he will because he was better there a couple of years ago than he is right now. When I look at this game tonight, you talk about control and tempo. I think that makes the key to this game the backcourt of Gooden, Scruggs, Bryce Moore when he's in, Kiki Tandy. If those guys play well, I think Xavier wins this game.
Yeah, they got to handle the full court pressure and the traps intelligently. And Travis wants them to advance the ball. He doesn't want them to throw it back up the court. He doesn't want them to go into the fetal position when they're trapped. He wants to advance the ball toward the bucket. And if you got the numbers, don't circle the wagons, attack and score. And because they'll foul. They'll definitely foul. They're a big negative at the free throw line. And Xavier should kill his team on the glass. And Fremantle's going to have to play a little better than he did in game one. And I think he will. He now knows what he's up against. But I think Xavier with a B- effort wins this game. And again, be patient, control the pace, only take open threes after inside-out passes and ball reversal. Don't fall in love with a three. Don't settle for three, and get on the offensive glass and just pound it in. And hopefully Tyreek will. He's avoided foul trouble despite his physical, emphatic style lately. I mean, this will probably be the game where like Jeffrey Anderson will be on the crew and Tyreek will get 3 fouls. That just ruins my day when I think of that possibility.
Yeah.
But I've seen it happen before. These guys show up and they got to make a point.
Well, I can tell you, I watch a lot of Big East basketball, a lot of Big Ten basketball, and the Big Ten officiating is not great either, but it's a lot better than what's in the Big East.
I've been down that road. I had, taken the high road for a number of years, and I didn't even comment on the officiating. And then it got really frustrating. This year, the Marquette game they shot 11 for 25 from the free throw line. I mean, they should have won that game. I mean,
Yeah.
two more made anyway. The officiating was horrible, especially in the OTs. I mean, it was like, I made the mistake of watching a replay on Fox Sports Ohio at 3 a.m. and just channel surfing or something. And I go, I can't believe this. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Stuff right in front of three guys who are making $1,200 a game. Make the call. And Xavier gets a lousy whistle at Cintas. I mean, it's just gone on too long now. It's like, this is not a neutral court. Everybody gets a little bit of an edge in the calls on their home floor most games, unless they're just completely out-talented or they're not prepared to play. And heck with it. I mean, I'm sure they're trying hard. They're good human beings. And but the officiating, I think, has dropped off. I thought it was really good in 2017, 2018. It was making progress. But maybe they keep changing the damn rules, and there's too much access to replay. And geez.
Yeah, I know. The replay I like, but it shouldn't take as long as it takes to get it done.
No, I mean, you got to give the advantage to the call made on the floor, and if there's not the obvious video to overturn it, then turn the page. Jeez,
yeah,
not the end of the world.
I mean, is there a college basketball game that doesn't last more than 2 hours anymore? It's like, if there's a game on at 2 I want to watch, and I see that there's a game on at noon before it, I already know that it's not going to start till quarter after.
Yeah, well, FS1 is Fox has finally acknowledged that. They put a 2.5-hour window in for their games on Big Fox and on FS1. I mean, a 2-hour window, totally unreasonable. I remember the first year of the Big East, they did 5 straight games on New Year's Eve, I think. They started at noon or something.
Yeah.
And they didn't get it done till 1 a.m. I mean, they had 2-hour windows. I go, this is never going to work. And it didn't.
It's kind of like when you see a college football game that's got a window of 3 hours. That's going to miss by about 40 minutes.
Yeah, because after 3 hours, the band, the visiting team's band is just getting off the field. I mean, you're not even ready to start the third quarter.
All right, so I expect to win tonight. I think Xavier gets this one. What do you think?
Well, it's a huge plus. Villanova is, as you say, that's a huge NET scalp, and I think they'll beat Villanova on Saturday at Cintas. Nova is they got a game on Wednesday at the Paul. They destroyed the Temple in their final Big Five game on Sunday. The key guy, again, I mean, Colin Gillespie is Archidiacono, and Jalen Brunson meets Bob Cousy. That guy is having a great junior year. I think he's a fourth-year guy, but he is a junior academically. And if Gillespie undressed Xavier at the Pavilion in the season opener, he was remarkable. He controlled the game, and Xavier lost, I think, by 3-4.
Yeah, that was the game where they actually came out playing well, and then about 5 minutes into the game, they went into one of those 7 or 8 minute droughts where they couldn't score at all and fell way behind.
Well, the energy is going to be off the charts against Villanova. I think Xavier will respond well, and Nova really is depending on a bunch of freshmen who are, really elite freshmen. In the big guy, Jeremiah, whatever his name, Moore is basically a starting guard, and Jeremiah, the big guy who was going to go to Kansas but ended up he's very good, but Xavier's tougher. They're more experienced, and Gillespie's going to have to drop 30 if they're going to win the ball game. And he's very capable. He might do it. But their bread is buttered with their 3 veterans, Sadiq Bey, Gillespie at the point, and Jermaine Samuels. All those guys will have to turn in really solid, B+ to A- performances, and the freshmen are not going to be able to freak. And Xavier's going to put bodies on their big guys. They're going to run wider off the 3-point line. They'll play hard, really hard, and I think Xavier's half-court defense is now back to the very, very elite level, and they're hard to crack in the half court, and they make you work for every score. And when they can slow you down and make you run offense, so I like them against Villanova. I like them against DePaul. It would be great to get on a roll here and get this St. Johns game in the hopper. And it's there. If they can keep the game in the 60s, they win it.
All right, Andy, very good. And you want to come back Friday at 3? We'll talk about the St. Johns game and preview the Villanova game.
I have nothing going on in my life, so sure.
Neither do I. So we'll talk about Xavier on Friday.
It would be my pleasure.
All right. I know you write at was it Musketeer Madness. You want to tell people where they can follow you on Twitter?
I'm rehabbing from hip surgery, so I've been going strictly Twitter the last few days because I just in between pain pills, I sort of wander off into Neverland. But I'm doing better. Anyway, the Twitter stuff I've kept up pretty well. It's MM_AndImhack. MM_AndImhack, all lowercase. Just I spew those Twitter things out like I do I thread 10 or 11 of them together, and if you read them in sequence, they tell a decent story.
All right, Andy, and you can follow me at Grueling Truth on Twitter. You can hear all of our shows wherever you find podcasts, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube. So for now, for Andy Mack, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.